Hey, I'm John Casmon, and I am a results leader, and you are checking out our show right now.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
You are listening to ResultsLeader.fm. So glad you are here. And today is your lucky day because we are going to have a deep conversation about growth, about marketing. Actually, the marketing came in at the end. What we're really going to be talking about is investing. I've got another amazing real estate investor, works in the multifamily market, and you are going to love this discussion. We go deep on failure, success, growth, all the good things that you know and love from ResultsLeader.fm. Today, I have Mr. John Casmon on the show. Let's jump into the interview. John, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today.
You can hear this guy is a professional. He's got that booming voice over there, so it's going to be fun. Let's jump into the first question. We want to give our listeners a quick win. So what book or books have you given most as a gift?
Oh, man, great question. It's funny. It's a question I ask my guests as well. So there are two books that I give often. The first one is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a phenomenal book. And if you are trying to make a change in your life, whether it's business related, personal related, it's a book that really helps you break down how to become the kind of person you want to be, and it really gets into the tiny day-to-day habits that we all have and how to make those shifts, right? How to change that behavior. And it's by doing the easy things, not necessarily, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds. It's like, hey, what is the very first thing you need to do? And then what's the very first thing of the very first thing? So it really breaks it down to the, molecular level so you can understand how to make those changes. The second, for real estate professionals who are interested in buying apartments, the best ever apartment syndication book is another book that I highly recommend for those who are looking to be active, because it's a great book that written by Joe Fairless and Theo Hicks. And he gets into a lot of the details and the actual syndication process from soup to nuts as far as what it takes to go out there, find a deal to syndicate, and work with other investors. So it's a great book to give you a lot of great details there.
And I never heard somebody say breaking down those habits to the molecular level, which then obviously, I haven't read the book, but now I get why it's Atomic Habits, the way you put that. So thank you. How did you first hear about that book?
So, I had guests on the show mention it, right? And I think about maybe the third person who said it. So I have a rule of thumb. If someone says the same book 3 times, I put it on the list and I'll go check it out. So I think the third person said it. I said, okay, let me go check it out. And I got the audiobook first, and I was probably 10 to 15 minutes into the audiobook, and I was like, wow, this is good. And I remember I was in San Francisco, and I was in San Francisco, and I was listening to it in the shower. I got out and I was still listening to it. I started working. I was still listening to it. And I found myself just binging this audiobook. And I was like, wow, this is good. And then I found myself wanting to stop it to take notes. And then I was like, you know what? I actually do not like the audiobook of this, because I wanted the physical version, because I kept wanting to reference it. So I had to stop it. And maybe there's a way to do this in Audible, but I don't know. But I had to stop it and then take a note on my phone of what he said and when it was roughly. So I want to go back to it, okay, hey, around the 33-minute mark, he talks about blah, 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 right? And I just got hooked. And I have about 4 copies of the book here in my office. And I've given it away, I don't know, probably a half dozen times. And it's anytime I'm interviewed and I tell people it's a great book, check it out. And for me, it's because it's actionable. This isn't theory. It's not, hey, here's how to change your mind. No, it's literally stuff you can do right now, today, in this moment, before you end this episode, that kind of action. So that's what I really love about the book.
Yeah, man. And sold. I'm getting it. And I do that too. I actually, I will get a book on Audible first and take it with me when I work out. And then when I like it, I'm going to buy it and then go through it and tab it up, highlight it up and all that, because I'm the same as you. Once I really like something, I need notes on it. So cool tips there all around. We got book tips, we got note tips, we got everything. So now let's move on to one of my favorite subjects. A lot of people don't like this subject. I know that any successful entrepreneur has a dear relationship with failure. And I'm wondering if you're willing to share a story with us on how an apparent failure set you up for later success.
Yeah, man. So, failure is one of those things that's in the business. And I remember I used to listen to another podcast, real estate podcast, and there was one of the hosts, he would always say, like, hey, if you don't have a failure, that either means you're not trying or you just don't have enough experience. And I kind of initially was like, yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like you don't have to fail. I feel like you can figure it out and, learn from other people and you'll be fine. And then, and I was buying smaller properties, 2-unit, 3-unit buildings, and I was doing well. And then I wanted to grow. I wanted to scale. And I did two things. I said, one, I want to start working with other people. And there's a whole learning curve on that. And then on the side, I wanted to flip properties so I could try to, recycle my money faster. And I knew that I didn't know much about flipping. So I partnered with a developer, and there was a guy, and he had this like trolley tour going, all this other stuff, right? So I sit down, I check out what he's doing with these flip projects. He's got about 5 or 6 different flips going at one time. He's got a model and a system. I talked to a buddy of mine who was working with him, and we decided to partner with him. Well, almost immediately the red flag started going off because one, I don't have experience as a flipper, but I've read flipping books, and they kind of have a 70% rule, right? Where it's like, hey, your all-in margins are not supposed to be above 70% of the cost, right? So if you buy something for, let's just say $1, the most you could pay all in, your rehab budget, holding costs, everything is 70 cents. That way you have 30% there for profit. Well, out of the gate, we were already above that 70%. So that was the first question to him. It was like, hey, seems a little tight. And he's like, don't worry, I got a model, I got a system. And again, I've seen it. I'm walking around, I see the 5 to 6 properties he's doing, and I only had the book knowledge. So I looked at it like, well, you can lean on your book knowledge, or you can look at a guy who's actually doing it. I'll lean on the guy who's doing it. And, it just derailed from there. Now, I had a business background. So I come from corporate America, working in marketing and overseeing teams. And I watched the way he was managing his teams. And I'm like, hey, man, you need to scale. You need a project manager. You're taking on more and more projects, but you're not scaling the team. Like, something's going to fall here. And he's, don't worry about that. And I kid you not, at that point, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not going to work. And all I could do was hope. And I will tell you, the worst business strategy you could ever have is a hope strategy. And that was my strategy at that point, was just hoping he was able to do it on time, remotely on time, definitely on budget, and none of those things manufactured. In short, man, we ended up having to take over the project. He fell into some hard times. Every project he had, it was like a house of cards. They all fell down, and every investor was left, defending for themselves. We finished that project. It cost me a lot more money and a lot more time than I ever anticipated. It actually stunted our growth, and it set us back probably a year as far as where we should have been. I lost a decent number, probably high 5 figures worth. And I think more than anything, it really stung at the time, because I was hoping to use these funds to transition fully into real estate and grow this building. And it really shook me to the core, because it made me question my own abilities. It made me question my abilities to find and build the right team, to vet the right people, to make the right decisions. And I look back on that situation, and I had to go back and almost, document, like, okay, hey, what could we have done differently at the various stages? One of the things up front, I talked about that 70% rule. Well, you know what? We knew that going into it. We should have done the deal from the jump. From the jump, it didn't work for our standards. There were some other things philosophically that, again, I felt like I knew from all the research that I had done, but since I had never done it in practice, I kind of disregarded the research that I had done. And I just laid on this guy. And that's one thing I would tell your audience is, you have to trust the experience you do have. Someone else may have more experience than you. Like right now, the stock market's crazy, right? It's going great. But if you've been reading investing books, and if you have, talked to mentors and advisors, and they have told you their investing philosophy, and you just ignore it all because people are crushing it right now, buying, specific stocks, and you just want to do that because you're going to miss out. You know, if you walk away from your fundamentals, you set yourself up for failure. So that's one of those things that we had to look at and say, you know what? Never walk away from our fundamentals. The fundamentals are what protects us when it comes to investing. And if you walk away from those fundamentals, now you're just gambling and you're hoping, and that's something we don't do. So that loss in particular was a deal that really made me question a lot of things. It made us really reevaluate whether or not this was the right path. But ultimately, it actually made us a lot stronger because it helped us understand that, listen, it's not about experience. It's not about just the win and the success. It's about being able to create, repeatable systems where you can do this over and over and over and not be like, unfortunately, that partner who built a house of cards and ultimately it stumbled and crumbled to the ground because he didn't build repeatable systems that were based on fundamentals.
Yeah, man. That is and you came back stronger from it. So that's the beautiful thing is that's the only way that you're going to succeed is taking that. And I like what you said there and I want to remind the listeners maybe to go back and check it out. It's you thought about your thinking. What got me here? What did I learn? What could I do differently? And I have a name for that. It's called the course corrector tool, reviewing that when you got off course, what got you off course, and how to get back on course. Very simple thought exercise or thought audit, as my friend Mark says, that separates us from the slugs on the ground that can't think, right? We can think about our thinking and build upon it. And I love that you put that out there. So with that, what would you say is the most worthwhile investment you have ever made?
Well, I mean, that's a heavy question. I mean, I could say my engagement ring to my wife is probably one that's high up there. So outside of that, I would probably say two things. One is the very first investment property we bought, which was a 2-unit building that we house hacked, just because it got us going, and I think that so many people, they think about something, they listen to shows like this and they get excited about the possibilities, but they never take action. They never do that thing and become the investor, become the entrepreneur. They never start that business. And just doing it is so important. And for us, doing that, and quite frankly, we had a lot of success. We bought in 2012. So that property almost doubled in value. It cash flowed nicely. We got a great line of credit. It enabled us to build a portfolio. So that investment was key. I would say for me to scale the business, though, to where we're at today was coaching. And if you would have told me back then, I would have laughed at you because I'm like, I'm not paying for coaching. Are you crazy? I'm resourceful. I'm smart. I'm a scrapper dude. And what ended up happening for me was, while I felt like I could create success for myself, I was concerned that I had blinders, right? And I just talked about the loss of a project that I had. I didn't want to have something like that with other people. So it was really important for me to step back, bring on a team member, in this case, a coach, who could help me see things that maybe I wasn't even aware was there right away. And that really helped us to scale and to think bigger. Even just being around someone who was doing deals of that magnitude made me shift my thinking as far as what was possible, because my goal was just to buy a 12 unit, a 20 unit, maybe a 30 unit, but that's really pushing it. And, I bought an 8-unit building right before I hired my coach. And the next deal he did was like 160 some unit or whatever. And I was like, wait, what? You can do this? Like, how do you do this? Like, I didn't even know what syndication was. And he was out there buying these large apartment communities where he was partnering with everyday people and pulling all the money together to go out there and buy them. And I didn't know it was possible. And if you would have told me that I could go out there and buy 100 plus unit apartment complexes, I mean, I'm a kid who went to a state college and, was on subsidized house, or not housing, but subsidized lunch programs in school. So that wasn't something we were thinking about, was going out there and buying 100-unit buildings. I was just trying to buy a couple 2 units, a couple 3 units, maybe 8 or 12. So that just really shifted my mindset and opened me up to thinking bigger and playing this game at a larger level.
How did you, because I love this conversation, especially because getting that perspective, especially where you came from, it seems impossible. So how did you let go of the I don't need coaching, and open up to, yeah, maybe somebody could help adjust my thinking because what mom and dad gave me wasn't enough.
It was a slow process, right? And that's the thing too, is like there's steps along the way. So I think the first thing for me was recognizing that I didn't have to do this all by myself. Because in my mind, up to that point, and I'm not just talking to coaching, I'm even talking about working with other investors. Like I was like, no, whatever money I have in my bank account is the money I have to go out and invest. So I would save and save. My wife and I, we would just save all our money. We lived off of one paycheck. We house hacked, where one resident paid, the bulk of the mortgages and the utility. So we lived not rent free, but we had a very low cost of living, and we saved the rest of the money. We used that to invest. So that was the path we were on. A couple things happened. One is I bought the 8-unit building. The down payment was 6 figures, and it was more than my salary. And I think after we closed, I sat there and said, oh man, I got to go through another year of basically working for free in my mind so I can buy another one. And we weren't making that much in cash flow. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't like quit my job. So I just felt like this was a long route. And I was starting to try to think about like, how do other people do this? And I remember one guy, I was at a meetup. It was actually a RIA meeting. And I told him what we were doing, and he laughed at me. Now, not in a disrespectful way, but he's like, "Yo, how'd you come up with the money for that?" He's like, "I was like, oh, we saved it." And he chuckled, and he's like, "Okay, well," and he walked away. And this is a guy who I knew had hundreds of units under his belt. So I was like, "How the hell else would you do it?" Like, and I was sitting there like he was the Riddler or something, And I was just like, "What do you mean?" And it just stuck with me for a while. And then a really good friend of mine, she went from 3 units when I met her to 9 units about 9 months later. And then about a year after that, she was at 90 units in her portfolio. So I said, "That's crazy." I said, "Can I buy you breakfast?" She said, "Sure." I said, "How in the hell did you go from 9 units to 90 units in less than a year?" And she explained to me that she started to take on investors, and they brought the bulk of the money. She managed the properties and kind of oversaw the property management and all those things. And she got a split. So obviously she gave up a good chunk of equity, but she was still able to build this portfolio without relying on her own money. And to me, when I heard her say that, and it was someone I knew and I met, and I watched her go from 3 units to 9 units to 90 units, and I saw that trajectory, that's when it became real to me. And then for me, I think at that moment, the idea opened up, because then I started to say, okay, that's cool, but right. And this is what a lot of people do. Well, that's good for her, but that won't work for me, but I can't do that because, and we start to fill out, these own scenarios. And as I kind of subconsciously did that to myself, one of the things that I realized was that, well, one is I don't currently have the network to go out and raise that kind of capital for my deals. And then the second thing is, while I have experience, I built up my own portfolio, and I feel pretty confident in what I'm doing. I just don't know what I don't know. And the answer for that came later, and it didn't come directly. I was looking to meet with people who were in a market that I was looking to move to and start investing in more. And I had lunch with the guy. People said, "Hey, you should meet with this guy." And I just asked him, I said, "Hey, I'm coming to Cincinnati. I'd like to meet with other Cincinnati investors." And they said, "Oh, you should talk to this guy. He's in Cincy. He's pretty active." I said, "Cool guy. Hey, let's meet." We met, and he told me his story, and he told me that he was doing what I'm telling you. And I asked him how he got started and how did he make that leap. And he said, "I hired a coach." And he said that coach helped him. I said, "Damn, that makes sense. Maybe I should hire a coach." And he's like, "Well, I coach." And I was like, "Man, look at that. It's the universe. Open it up for me." And I thought about it for a few days. I talked to my wife about it. And we decided to move forward with it. So it wasn't that I sat there and said, "Oh, I need a coach. I need to do this. I need to do that." It just really felt organic in the sense that I was having conversations. I was learning how people were scaling and growing their portfolios. Coaching kind of became one way, not the only way, right? My friend, she partnered. So I knew I needed to partner, but I also knew that there were things I didn't know in how to partner. And when I met him, it was a missing piece to the puzzle for me that made it an easier decision to move forward after knowing, someone there who grew listening to him and his story and how he grew. And because these are real people I was sitting down with and having conversations with, it made it real. Everything else to me up to that point was theory. It was in books. And I didn't know who these people were who wrote these books, so they weren't real to me. But the people sitting across from me that I could look in the eye, that made this real. And at that moment, I said, okay, I had a strong background in corporate America. So it's like, I looked at them, and with all due respect to them, it wasn't like they were anything or doing anything that I wasn't able to do. They weren't rocket scientists. One just came from sales. The other one was actually in marketing. So their backgrounds were not, there was nothing in there that made me feel like this was not achievable for myself. So I think with that confidence, I was able to move forward.
Yeah, man. So in the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Man, one thing that has really helped me is, I'm going to call it positive thinking, but there's a book called The Four Agreements that you may be familiar with. And one of the agreements is essentially, and I forget the exact words, but it's assume no ill will. Don't assume that, anything. If something bad happens, if someone cuts you off, don't assume they did it because they want you to crash or whatever. Like, just maybe they're in a rush. Like, stop judging. Don't worry about the reason behind it, and just let that go. And when you can let that go, it frees you to not care about things that don't matter. And I think that's just a really important thing, is to control your mindset. So that's one of the things that we do. And the other thing that I try to do is, I actually have gotten big into things like affirmations and, meditation. And I mean, it's stuff that I used to, I won't say laugh at, but
you laughed at it.
It was like, come on, man, get out of here. You sat there and meditate. Okay, you're gonna make $1 million meditating. No, okay, buddy. But it's stuff that I think a lot of people may not recognize the power behind it. And affirmations is something that I struggled with because, to me, when I was seeing people do affirmations or reading about it, it was people saying stuff that wasn't true. And I'm like, how are you gonna sit there and say things that are simply not true? Like, you don't weigh whatever you try to say you weigh, or you don't have the money in your account that you're saying you have. I don't know why you would do that. But as I talk to more and more people about it, it's like, well, there's different ways to do affirmations. And what works for me, and I'll share this with your audience, what works for me with affirmations is highlighting things about myself that are true, but I may just need a reminder. For instance, one of the things that I tell myself, and I'll share this here, is that I have the energy, the creativity, and the discipline to create abundance in my life. Now, that's not saying, hey, I've got $20 million in the bank account and I look like Brad Pitt and Will Smith together. Like, that's not those things, right? It's the mindset I want myself to know and to keep in mind, is that, hey, you have the energy to do this. I know you might feel tired. I know you feel tired. I know you want to sleep in, but you have the energy to create abundance. You have the discipline to create abundance. Okay, you're facing a hard problem. You don't know how to solve this. Well, guess what? You have the creativity to do it. So for me, those three things, and saying that to myself every morning, it empowers me to be the problem solver and to take care of any challenges that I face throughout the day. Because I've realized, for me, and again, this is just my challenge, it's showing up every day, right? It's the discipline. It's the creativity to overcome whatever random challenge you face that's thrown in your face any given day. And then it's the energy. It's making sure that you can go, 12, 14, 16, 18 hours, whatever it takes in that day to be successful. So just remind yourself that eating the right foods, and then everything else you do either supports that, right? If you tell yourself you have the discipline, get your ass up. You're saying you're the discipline, but you're still sleeping in bed and you're hitting snooze. Okay, well, you didn't have it, right? And that's fine. It's just, now I'm competing with myself. Because if I actually get up and I tell myself you have the discipline, I do. I just deposit it. And anybody who actually reads Atomic Habits, you'll get this, right? If I wake up, I just made a deposit for a person who has discipline. And every day you make deposits for who you are, and that's one of those little mental things. So just recognizing, like, I never even was aware that this stuff existed. I was just a competitive young guy who wasn't supposed to. So I knew the odds were stacked against me. So I just knew I had to work harder than everybody else. And that was my mentality. I didn't realize that I actually had more control over other aspects of it as well.
Beautiful, man. What are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
Oh my goodness. So, from a real estate investing standpoint, one of the worst things that I've heard is people buying for appreciation or that the market always goes up and things like that. Here's the thing: I'm not a gambler. Okay. So, when we invest, one of our philosophies is to buy income producing assets. Now, part of this may also be due to that experience I mentioned to you before where I lost all that money. But if you think about how I lost money, well, yes, I owned a piece of real estate, but it wasn't producing any money, right? There was no income because we were renovating it the whole time. Because I was flipping the property, I had a hard money loans, very expensive hard money loan, and I only had a window. And every day that we went past that window, I was going further and further into the red, right? So it was time based and time bound. And I think those two things are the things that crush most real estate investors. There's some aspect of it. If you either, and then the third is just buying in a suboptimal location. Okay. Not buying in a place where demand is increasing. So if you understand those three basic principles, you can do pretty well with investing. I broke every single one of them on the property I just mentioned. The area was okay, but it wasn't in an area that people were really clamoring to live in. We just had a bunch of challenges there. So anyone who tells you to just buy real estate and wait because, hey, real estate just appreciates, I would find that to have some challenges. What I would tell you instead is focus on income producing properties and buy with a longer term hold in mind, but give yourself flexibility to sell earlier if the market deems that necessary or you decide you want to cash out of your position. But you want to control the exit. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to do a fire sale to offload a property and now you're going to lose even more money just because you don't want to pay the holding costs.
Yeah, man. All right, I know you were getting into that, and we were just about to get into my favorite part where we talk about results. But first, I want to ask you a question. Are you picking up what we're laying down on this show? Are you digging what we are sharing? If you are, why not make yourself a hero today and share this with somebody who can use it? Put this out on your social media channels. #ResultsLeaderFM. I'll be out there looking for you, and I'll make sure to boost it up too when I see you. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump back into the interview. Now it's time for what everybody's been waiting for. It's time to talk about results. John, why do results matter?
That's a great question. And at the end of the day, you can put in a lot of work. Results, it's what other people are going to see. And results are what people pay for. You pay for results. I do coaching for investors looking to be active and grow, their syndication business or just really work to raise capital for deals. And that's the big thing. There's a lot of effort that goes into that, and people pay you for those results. And that's something that's really, really important. How do you get those results? What are you focusing on? What are those key performance indicators or KPIs? And the challenge with the results sometimes, and depending on the business, is you may not be able to demonstrate them right away. If you're talking about buying a 100-unit building, well, either you bought one or you didn't buy one. That doesn't mean, you're a failure if you didn't buy one, but you need to be continually improving and continuing to look at, the progress that you're making and adjusting. Are you okay if you buy 250 units? Or does it have to be in a year, or can it be over the next 5 years? Like, is your time horizon off? So I think there are things that you can adjust, but you have to focus on the results, because if you don't, then you don't have anything to show for it. And at the end of the day, you can't show, your lenders effort. They either want to know you either have the money or you don't have the money. Your kids don't care about effort. Either you did it or you didn't do it. Your boss doesn't care about effort, right? Effort's important, but results is what people care about. And it's that last notch, right? It's the last degree that helps separate you from the people who are putting in work. Everyone's puts in work. Everyone tries. Okay. It's not about trying. It's about getting those results and understanding what it takes to get there. And that goes back to the creativity thing, right? Everyone's going to go out and try to do whatever it is they're trying to do. You're going to run into some roadblocks. So if you are creative and you are solutions oriented, that's how you get results. And I just think it's really important for people to focus on those results, but also focus on progress. I think again, it's not a zero sum. Either you win or you lost. Sometimes you have to pivot. Sometimes you have to look at it and say, hey, you know what? We didn't buy a property, but we underwrote 50 properties. We put in 12 offers. You know what? And what did you talk about before? You talk about course correcting, right? So in that case, you may not have the results you wanted, but now you can course correct because you've put in those offers, and you can say, okay, well, we didn't get this, but maybe we did this, or here's the feedback we keep getting. What if we tweak this? And then that adjustment might get you across the finish line to get those results you're looking for. So you have to put in the work, and you keep having to attempt to at least learn, even if the results are suboptimal. Doing something is better than doing nothing or waiting to be perfect. So keep at it and learn from what you're doing, because you're going to get feedback. And I think that's really important thing, is that we love all the results, but feedback is great too. And sometimes the feedback can be harsh, but if you can take that feedback and adjust, then you'll be on the path to the results you're looking for.
Man, I dig it. Let's think back over the last 5 years. What new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
I think one of the things is you can learn something from everyone, and recognizing that it's a two-way street and it's not just one way. So understanding, people's strengths, people weaknesses, but their perception of that may be completely different than what your perception is. So I have one client who is phenomenal in front of the camera, but she is extremely nervous every time she records. And I'm like, but you're great. Your videos look amazing. She's like, oh, I hate doing video. And it's one of those things where it's like, you kind of have to understand like where they're coming from, their perception, and sometimes reassure them. And other people, you have to understand like, hey, just like any other coach, you have to push them to try to be the better version of themselves, to put in the work, to hold them accountable. From a real estate standpoint, I think the biggest thing is really making sure that we understand the principles and the foundations, and stick to that, stick to those founding principles, the follow-ups, and a lot of those things. If we stay true to it, we can get results.
We're going inward now. What area of your business would you like better results?
Acquisitions.
It's hard now though, isn't it?
It's challenging, everything. It's challenging, but it's not a reason to stop. And I think part of it is, as we talked about your course correction tool, you have to look at it and say, okay, we're not getting the deals that we would have gotten maybe 2-3 years ago with this offer. How do we course correct? How do we step back? How do we reevaluate our offer? Do we change our debt? Do we change our return expectations? Do we change markets? Do we change whatever? And you have to look at that and make adjustments. And I think that's the great part of this, is that you have to maintain control. I think the difference between us and the groups that are successful and doing deals, and those who are maybe sitting it out or waiting or maybe not as successful, is the creativity to try to find a solution. And I get it. Investing is a little bit different than other businesses, but would you have any other business where you made a decision just to not sell a product or not offer a service because you just didn't like where the market was? No. Could you imagine P&G saying, hey guys, yeah, the market's a little too hot right now, so we're gonna wait for 6 months to see what happens? No. Like, what kind of business model is waiting? Like, waiting, you're just basically saying, I'm not gonna try. And I don't want people to take offense to that, but I'm just a firm believer that if this is the business you're in, you should be in the business. And just swing the bat, step up to the plate and swing the bat. Even if you miss 2, 3, 4, 5 years straight, step up to the plate, because you will also notice it when it changes back, or when there are other adjustments, or when there's a new option. You can't get that if you're not in the game. So you have to still be in the game. You have to still be underwriting. You still have to be making offers to understand when things change and recognize like, hey, what adjustments can we make, and take a look at that. And again, I think that it's really important to be active. But for us, yeah, we'd love more acquisitions. We'd love more deals. And all we can do at this point is continue to refine our approach, look for opportunities in the marketplace and see where we can be opportunistic.
Yeah, man. What results are you most proud of?
I would say helping other people pursue their passions through passive investing. So, in our model, the way we work is we work with other investors, and being able to help other people, being able to let them get into real estate, to do the things they want to do, whether that's travel, spending time with their family, planning for college graduations, things like that, where they're not landlords now running around trying to manage, the craziness of COVID or whatever the situation is. That gives us a lot of comfort, and it's reaffirming our goal. And our goal is to help other people get financial independence through partnering with us, because not everybody wants to be a day-to-day person. I mean, I did that for 8 years and almost killed myself trying to balance full-time job, parent of young kids, real estate business, we're trying to grow. And it's a lot of work. It's not as easy as people make it out to be. So if you can help other people, it's very fulfilling for us.
Beautiful. So as we are wrapping up, any parting thoughts you want to share with the results leaders out there?
I think the biggest thing is just making sure that you are focused on results, looking at your systems, looking at where you can improve. And we didn't talk a lot about marketing, but I think marketing is extremely important. It's where I spent 15 years of my career. And many of the problems you may face in business are probably marketing problems. I mean, certainly there's some internal things that you may need to fix from an operations standpoint. But if you don't have enough clients, if people don't know who you are, if you're not getting enough sales, whatever the case may be, what are you doing from a marketing standpoint? And I think entrepreneurs, for whatever reason, seem to be really apprehensive to spend marketing capital when your ideal client, investor, customer, they're out there. And they're out there on Google, they're out there on YouTube, they're out there on Facebook, they're out there on Instagram. And there are some great tools to go out there and connect with these individuals if you tap into it. And that's a great way to stand out amongst your peers here. So just think about that. How do you stand out? How do you grow your business? And I think it's the best thing you can do.
Man, this was enlightening. I enjoyed our time together. Now, where can people, because I know that our listeners are going to want to find out more about you, where can people go to learn more about you?
Yeah, I got 2 places. So the first is, if you're interested in real estate investing, whether you want to be active or passive, doesn't matter. We get into a sample deal, and we actually walk you through what a sample deal looks like. You go to our website, casmoncapital.com/sample deal. And you can learn more there. You'll also get on our email newsletter for updates. And then second, we also host a podcast called Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing show. And that is available anywhere you listen to podcasts. So either one of those 2 places, and we'd love to connect with you.
Excellent. Thank you, John, for being on the show. Thank you, results leaders, for tuning in. That is a wrap. We will be back in your earbuds next time. That is a wrap for another edition of ResultsLeader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to ResultsLeader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.